Late October afternoons in Chicago usually brought a biting wind off Lake Michigan, but today it was accompanied by a relentless heavy rain. The streets were slick, reflecting the city lights as dead autumn's leaves were swept into the gutters by passing cars. Harper stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of the architectural design firm, where she had worked for nearly 8 years, quietly watching the rush-hour crowds below. The clock struck 5:30 p.m. She closed her laptop, stacked her blueprints, and took a deep breath. Today was supposed to be just another ordinary Tuesday. Yet, a vague, inexplicable sense of anxiety hovered in her chest. Her phone buzzed on the desk. The college alumni group chat suddenly lit up with dozens of notifications. Phil, their former class president, announced that this weekend they would hold a 10-year reunion at an upscale restaurant on the Chicago River. The chat immediately exploded. People bragged about their careers, shared photos of their kids, and joked about needing to lose 10 pounds before the weekend. Harper skimmed the messages and was about to lock her screen when a specific name popped up, making her thumb freeze. The new person in the chat sent a simple smiley face emoji and a brief text. "Long time no see, everyone." Just a few words, but the group went wild. "Wow, she's finally back from London. Our college queen has returned. Someone's probably very happy today." Followed by a flurry of smirking emojis. Harper didn't need anyone to explain who they were talking about. Cole, her husband. Back in college, Cole and Vivian were the department's IT couple. Everyone assumed they would get married after graduation. But right before senior year ended, Vivian unexpectedly moved to Europe for a master's degree, and their 4-year romance abruptly died. 2 years later, Harper met Cole through a joint corporate project. They fell in love and got married. 6 years of marriage had passed, not overwhelmingly passionate, but peaceful enough for her to believe the past was dead and buried. At least that was what she thought until her phone buzzed again. A text from Cole. "Running late tonight. Client meeting." Harper replied with a simple, "Okay." She locked her phone and packed her bag. The drive back to their Lincoln Park condo was miserable in the rain. Traffic was gridlocked on Lakeshore Drive, the blaring horns and the drumming of rain against the windshield making her heart feel even heavier. By the time she got home, it was almost 7:00 p.m. The apartment was dead silent. Harper changed her clothes and went into the kitchen to prep dinner just like any other night. She made 3 simple dishes: lemon herb roasted chicken, garlic, green beans, and mashed potatoes. Cole's favorites. Dinner was on the table. 7:30, 8:30. Cole still wasn't home. It was nearly 9:00 p.m. when the front door finally clicked open. Cole walked in, still wearing his familiar charcoal gray suit. He loosened his tie, dropped his briefcase on the armchair, and gave a faint smile. "Meeting ran long." Harper nodded. "You ate already." It wasn't a question. She looked at the untouched dinner on the table. She didn't complain, simply standing up to pack the food into Tupperware. Cole went to take a shower. While he was in the bathroom, his phone left on the coffee table, lit up with a new text message. Harper didn't have a habit of snooping, but the bright screen caught her eye in the dim room. The sender's name was just one word: Vivin. Her heart sank. The preview on the lock screen showed a fragment of the message. "Thanks for today. I really missed," she told herself. It might have just been a coincidence, or they were discussing the upcoming reunion. "Don't overthink it. Don't be paranoid," she reminded herself, just as she had for the past few years. Cole stepped out of the bathroom, his hair damp. He immediately picked up his phone, glancing at the screen. In a split second, Harper saw the shift in his eyes. He typed a reply rapidly, then placed the phone face down on the table. That was the exact moment Harper realized that Cole had developed a habit of never leaving his screen facing upward around her. Harper barely slept that night. Cole breathed evenly beside her. Outside, the rain battered the window panes. Around 3 a.m., she woke up to an empty space beside her. The living room light was on. Harper crept to the bedroom door. Through the crack, she saw Cole standing out on the balcony in the freezing cold, speaking in a hushed tone. "Yeah, I'll see you this weekend." "It's fine. Don't worry about it." He turned around and Harper quickly slipped back into bed, squeezing her eyes shut, pretending to be deep asleep when he re-entered the room. The next morning, he acted entirely normal. He ate breakfast, read the news on his iPad, and left for work, as if the 3 a.m. phone call never happened. But Harper knew a hairline fracture had just appeared in her soul. It wasn't large enough to shatter a marriage yet, but it was enough to end her blind trust. That afternoon, Harper took a half-day off. She stopped by Whole Foods and serendipitously ran into Maya, her best friend since college. They sat in a nearby Starbucks for an hour. Maya stared at Harper for a long time before suddenly asking, "Are you okay?" "Why do you ask? Just a gut feeling," Mia said. "I'm fine." Harper smiled. Mia didn't push it. But when they hugged goodbye, Mia squeezed Harper's hand. "If anything is going on, tell me. Don't carry it alone." Those words echoed in Harper's mind all the way home. That evening, while organizing the filing cabinet in the study, she pulled out the wooden lockbox, where they kept their important documents. Inside was their marriage certificate, the condo's deed, joint savings statements, and a promissory note signed by Cole 3 years ago when Harper's parents loaned him $80,000 to start his own architectural firm. Back then, he had looked her parents in the eye and confidently promised to pay them back within 2 years. The money still hadn't been returned. Recently, Harper had overheard him talking about transferring a massive sum into a new boutique resort project in Wisconsin, the Lake Geneva Resort. If that project had anything to do with Vivin, or worse, if he was planning to use their joint marital assets to pave the way for a new life, Harper absolutely refused to play the blind, beautiful wife. She carefully arranged the papers, driven by a vague but sharp instinct. She took out her phone and photographed every single document. Preparing for the worst didn't mean it would happen, but if a storm was coming, she wouldn't be caught without an umbrella. The evening of the reunion, Cole stood in front of the mirror for a long time. He chose his sharpest navy suit, polished his Oxford shoes, and even applied a high-end cologne he hadn't touched in months. Harper stood in the doorway watching him. She smiled faintly. "You're really going all out tonight. Must be excited to see the old crowd." Not a single probing question. No jealousy. Her composure caught Cole slightly off guard. He walked over and gently squeezed her shoulder. "Wear the cream-sheath dress tonight." "Okay, you look beautiful in it." Harper looked straight into her husband's eyes. The familiar gentleness was there, but she could no longer read what lay beneath it. Some people were masters at hiding their emotions. Some marriages looked flawless from the outside, and only the people inside knew about the rot quietly eating away at the foundation. That night, Harper pulled the cream dress from her closet, smoothing out the fabric. Then, she reached into the back of her drawer and pulled out her old iPhone. It still worked perfectly. She charged it fully and slipped it into her clutch. It had only one purpose tonight, the voice memo app. She prayed she wouldn't have to use it. But a woman's intuition told her that tonight was not going to be a normal class reunion, and perhaps after tonight, her life would take an entirely different path. Saturday morning, Harper woke up earlier than usual. Chicago felt strangely crisp after days of rain. The sky was an overcast, pearly gray. If it weren't for the cream dress hanging perfectly on the closet door, and the old iPhone tucked inside her clutch, Harper might have believed the past few days were just a fever dream. She went to the kitchen and prepped breakfast. 2 plates as always, bagels with cream cheese and lox from the deli downstairs, a black drip coffee for Cole, and hot lemon water for herself. Routines she had maintained for 6 years, so ingrained that her hands moved before her heart could feel. But today, as she set Cole's coffee mug down, she felt overwhelmingly hollow. It was like walking into a childhood home after decades away. Everything looked familiar, but everything felt cold to the touch. Cole emerged from the bedroom around 8 a.m., crisped white button-down, dark slacks, hair perfectly styled. Not a trace of fatigue from a man who had been up late, whispering on the balcony. He sat down, took a sip of coffee, and looked at her, his voice casual. "Let's head out a little early tonight. I don't want to be late." Harper took a bite of her bagel. "I know." Cole stared at her for a few seconds, seemingly trying to gauge if anything was wrong. But Harper's face was as placid as a still lake. Her quietness actually made him slightly uncomfortable. In the past, if there was friction, Harper would ask questions, nag a little, try to talk things out. Even when she was mad, it was the kind of anger that wanted to be appeased. Today she asked nothing. She didn't mention Vivian, she didn't mention the balcony calls or the text message. Her silence wasn't soft, nor was it weak. It was like a door locked from the inside, leaving the person on the outside unsure if they should even bother knocking. After breakfast, Cole sat in the living room scrolling through his phone. Harper washed the dishes, listening to the constant pinging of notifications. He had the volume low, but occasionally he chuckled. A soft, private laugh. Once Harper would have turned around and asked what was so funny. Today she just turned off the faucet, dried her hands, and walked to the bedroom. On her vanity she had laid out the pearl earrings her mother had given her on her wedding day. Back then, her mother had held her hands and said, "A woman going into a marriage needs more than just love. She needs to keep a piece of her sanity for herself. Marriage isn't all flowers and sweet words. There will be days when you have to look ugly truths in the eye, and you cannot allow yourself to collapse." Harper had laughed it off back then, thinking her mother was just being overly cautious. Now every word felt like a tiny needle pricking her heart. Around noon, her mother-in-law, Eleanor, called. Harper watched the screen for a few seconds before answering. Eleanor's voice was as commanding as ever. She didn't converse, she issued directives. "Harper, are you two going to that reunion tonight?" "Yes, Eleanor." "Well, Cole told me about it. Make sure you dress appropriately. Don't look frumpy. Cole has a real position in the industry now. When a man goes out, his wife needs to uphold his reputation. People judge a man's success by looking at his wife." Harper pressed her lips together, her hand resting on the cold marble counter. "I understand." Eleanor paused, then added in a feigned casual tone, "I also heard some old college girlfriend of Cole's moved back from Europe. Listen, whatever happened in their youth is in the past. As his wife, you need to be magnanimous. Don't let it bruise your ego just because she's pretty and successful. Don't make a scene. The more successful a man is, the more he needs an understanding wife. Senseless jealousy ruins everything." Harper didn't reply immediately. She looked up at her wedding photo on the wall. In it, she was smiling in her white gown, Cole beside her. Her smile had been so pure then, or at least she thought it was. She kept her voice soft. "Eleanor, if a woman is humiliated in front of a room full of people, is she still supposed to be magnanimous just to protect her husband's reputation?" Dead silence on the other end. Eleanor clearly hadn't expected her usually agreeable daughter-in-law to push back. Her voice dropped, laced with displeasure. "What exactly do you mean by that?" "I'm just giving you advice. In a marriage, you let slide what you can. Men have to network and deal with people." Harper smiled, though her eyes remained cold. "I'll remember your advice, Eleanor." She hung up before her mother-in-law could say another word. For the first time in years, Harper realized that some advice, disguised as saving the marriage, was actually just demanding one person to endure abuse so everyone else could remain comfortable. She didn't entirely blame Eleanor. The woman belonged to an older generation, where a good wife was one who swallowed her tears and stayed silent. But Harper refused to be anyone's shadow, especially when that person might be actively plotting to push her out of his life in the cruelest way possible. Early that afternoon, Mia texted asking if she needed a ride to the restaurant. Harper felt a warmth in her chest. She replied that she would go with Cole, but asked Mia to keep her phone off silent tonight. Mia replied instantly, "My ringer is on blast, don't be afraid." Harper stared at those 3 words. Was she afraid? Of course she was. She was terrified of facing the truth, terrified of hearing Cole confirm what her intuition already knew, terrified that 6 years of marriage was just a thin veil about to be torn away. But she was far more terrified of being backed into a corner, with no evidence, no witnesses, and no way out. Left with nothing but tears and public humiliation while others gossiped about her demise. At exactly 5 left p.m., Harper started her makeup. She didn't overdo it. A dusty rose lipstick, softly filled brows, a light layer of concealer to hide the dark circles. The cream dress fit perfectly elegant and understated. She put on the pearl earrings, checked the old iPhone in her clutch, and ensured the voice memo app was running perfectly with the volume muted. She also folded a photocopy of the $80,000 promissory note Cole had signed to her parents and slipped it into her bag. 3 years ago, he had promised them a full return with interest. Not a dime had been paid. Yet, Harper was hearing whispers of a massive cash injection into the Lake Geneva project. If that had anything to do with Vivian, or if he was siphoning marital assets for his fresh start, Harper absolutely would not play the fool. Cole walked into the bedroom just as she snapped her clutch shut. He paused, his eyes sweeping over her from head to toe. A flash of satisfaction appeared, but also a hint of unfamiliarity, as if the woman standing before him was simultaneously his wife and someone entirely out of his control. "You look beautiful tonight," he said. Harper turned and gave a polite, distant smile. "Thank you, that was it. No blushing, no excitement, no asking. Really, you think so? Like she used to." Cole frowned slightly, but quickly turned away. "Let's go." The River House was an upscale restaurant right on the Chicago Riverwalk. Its floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of the city's glowing skyline. The cost of a private dining room here was exorbitant. A $5. Thousand minimum spend, not including alcohol. Harper knew Phil, the class president, hadn't chosen this place just for nostalgia. A 10-year reunion wasn't an innocent gathering of youth. It was a silent battlefield of who was more successful, who married better, who drove what car, and whose voice commanded the most attention. Cole knew this, and Vivian likely knew it too. When they walked into the private room, about 20 people were already there. The loud chatter immediately shifted toward them. Phil rushed over. "Cole, man, it's been a minute. Harper, you look stunning as always." Harper smiled and greeted everyone. She recognized old faces. Some had gained weight, some were losing hair, some brought spouses, handshakes, hugs, polite small talk. Cole seamlessly merged into the crowd, laughing loudly, patting backs, talking architecture and real estate. Harper sat next to him, maintaining a perfectly calibrated smile. Inside her clutch, the old iPhone was quietly recording every sound in the room. About 10 minutes later, the heavy oak doors opened again. The atmosphere in the room distinctly shifted. A few of the guys actually cheered. Vivian walked in. She wore a deep burgundy slip dress, her hair blown out in loose waves, minimal jewelry, but every piece looked incredibly expensive. She held a black designer clutch. She was gorgeous. Harper didn't deny it, but it was an aggressive, intentional kind of beauty that demanded to be looked at. Vivian stood at the door, her eyes scanning the room before locking onto Cole for a beat longer than socially acceptable. Then she looked at Harper and her lips curled upward. "Harper, long time no see." Her voice was dripping with honey, but the kind that had sat too long and turned bitter at the bottom. Harper stood up and replied calmly, "It has been." Vivian stepped forward and extended a hand. Harper took it. Vivian's hand was cold, her nails painted a sharp crimson. She squeezed slightly harder than a normal handshake, a greeting with thorns. "I hear you and Cole are doing wonderfully. I'm truly so happy for you," Vivian purred. Harper looked her dead in the eye. "Thank you." Cole stood awkwardly beside them but quickly masked it with a laugh. "Take a seat, Viv, everyone's been waiting." Phil immediately pointed to the empty chair right next to Cole. "Vivian, sit here, our guest of honor gets the center seat." The empty chair was on Cole's left. Harper was on his right. Harper observed the seating arrangement without a word. Cole sitting between his wife and his ex-girlfriend was like a ridiculous boundary line, or perhaps a bridge that one person was trying to cross while the other sat back calmly to watch it collapse. Dinner commenced. Wine flowed. Prime rib was served. Old college stories were dragged out, and the laughter grew louder. At first, it was polite, but the more people drank, the looser the room became. Vivian knew exactly how to command a room. She talked about her years in London, her work as a branding consultant for Michelin-starred restaurant groups, and casually dropped the rent of her River North penthouse, $8,000 a month, as if it were nothing. People gasped. People praised her. Vivian just laughed, occasionally turning to Cole. "Remember when you told me I was born to be a boss?" The casual intimacy in her voice made the table collectively ooh. Cole chuckled, not correcting her. "It's been years and you still remember that." "Some things you never forget, no matter how much time passes," Vivian replied, her eyes locked on his. The room fell silent for a fraction of a second before the laughter erupted again. But Harper heard the anticipation in that laughter. They were waiting for something, a little drama. An old flame reignited, a jealous wife, a triumphant ex. A man put on a pedestal to be fought over by two women. Harper picked up her water glass and took a sip. Her throat was bone dry, but her hand didn't shake. Under the table, her phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "Are you okay, Harper?" "Nothing yet, but it's coming." Just as she hit send, Vivian stood up, holding a glass of Pinot Noir. Her eyes were shimmering, sweeping across the table before landing on Cole. "Seeing everyone tonight, it makes me miss our college days so much. I miss when we were broke but so happy. I miss when a certain someone would drive through a blizzard just to bring me hot soup. I miss that freezing little off-campus apartment where the wind howled so loud we had to huddle together just to stay warm." The joking chatter died down. Harper placed her glass on the table. Cole didn't look at his wife, he just looked down, nervously spinning his wedding band. It was a subtle movement, but Harper caught it. Vivian tilted her head and smiled at Harper. A smile so gentle. It was utterly fake. "Harper, I hope you don't mind. It's ancient history after all." In that moment, Harper completely understood what this dinner was. It wasn't a reunion, it was a stage. The lighting was set, the audience was seated, and they were just waiting for her to step into her role as the humiliated, insecure wife. Harper looked at Vivian, then at Cole. She didn't speak immediately because she knew the play had only just begun. Harper stared at Vivian for a long, agonizing moment, so long that the fake smile on Vivian's face began to falter. The dining room was brilliantly lit, the hum of the HVAC suddenly audible, the clinking of silverware freezing in midair. It felt as though 20 people were holding their breath, waiting to see how the legal wife would react to a dagger wrapped in velvet. Harper knew the trap. If she frowned, if she snapped back, if she showed any irritation, she would instantly become the petty, jealous shrew ruining the vibe. But if she stayed silent, Vivian would push further. The game was rigged from the start. But Harper was no longer the naive girl who believed that being good meant people would treat her with respect. She gently set her glass down, her voice soft but crystal clear. "Ancient history shouldn't be minded. You're right, but if ancient history keeps being brought up at the perfect time, in the perfect place, right in front of someone's wife, then perhaps it's no longer an innocent memory." "Right, Vivian?" The table went dead silent. Vivian's smile shattered for a split second. Cole snapped his head toward Harper, a warning flashing in his eyes. "Harper." His voice was low, laced with a threat. "Everyone is just having fun." Harper turned to her husband, her expression perfectly serene. "I am having fun too, Cole. I'm just making conversation." The response was so feather-light that Cole couldn't find an angle to attack it. Phil, sweating nervously, raised his glass. "All right. Emotions are high. It's been a long time, let's drink. No sad or heavy talk tonight." The tension was awkwardly swept away by forced cheers, but from that moment on, Harper knew Vivian was looking at her differently. The fake pity was gone. Vivian realized Harper wasn't the docile doormat she could push into a corner. A sharp irritation began to brew in the ex-girlfriend's eyes. Harper was certain this night wasn't going to end with just a few passive-aggressive comments. More wine was poured. Liam, a guy who used to be Cole's frat brother, pulled his chair closer and laughed loudly. "Coleman, you're in a different league now. I heard your firm is about to land that Lake Geneva resort project in Wisconsin. That's what a $20 million build." Cole leaned back, feigning humility, though his eyes gleamed with pride. Nothing signed yet. We're still in negotiations. Vivian immediately chimed in, speaking with the casual authority of an insider. But the developers love your pitch. I looked over the deck. If this closes, it's going to put your firm on the national map. That single sentence made Harper slowly raise her head. I looked over the deck. Cole's project documents were highly confidential. Harper had heard him briefly mention Lake Geneva, but whenever she asked for details, Cole would brush her off, saying it was complex corporate architecture she wouldn't understand. Yet Vivian, someone who just moved back to the States, knew enough to brag about it to their friends with such intimate familiarity. An icy chill spread from Harper's fingertips to her chest, but she didn't interrupt. She simply reached down, pretending to adjust the clutch at her feet, ensuring the opening was wide enough for the iPhone microphone to catch every word. Cole realized his slip-up. He shot Vivian a rapid, nervous glance. Vivian realized she had overstepped and quickly deployed her charm. I just heard Cole mention it in passing. Since I do branding, I'm a nerd for cool hospitality projects. Just curious. Harper smiled. Ah, I see. You discuss your projects in more detail with Vivian than you do with your own wife. Nobody laughed this time. Cole slammed his wineglass down, his voice dropping an octave. Harper, stop twisting everyone's words. You're just listening to hear what you want to hear. I discuss business with people who can offer professional insight. The moment the words left his mouth, Cole realized he had gone too far. A few classmates looked down, aggressively cutting their steaks to avoid eye contact. Maya wasn't in the room, but her text message felt like a warm hand on Harper's shoulder. Don't collapse. Vivian lowered her eyes, her voice dripping with guilt. Harper, please don't misunderstand. If it makes you uncomfortable, I'll avoid talking business with Cole from now on. Cole, the familiarity wasn't explicitly vulgar, but it crossed a line. Harper looked at her, then at her husband. He didn't correct Vivian's tone. He was actually scowling at Harper, annoyed that she was making a scene. Right then, Liam awkwardly tried to change the subject, but he chose the worst possible pivot. Anyway, enough about work. Tonight's about the glory days. Honestly, back in college, who didn't think Cole and Viv were going to tie the knot? You two were glued at the hip. Tara, sitting across from them, giggled. Right. I remember when Vivian got the flu. Cole ran to 3 differenties at 2 a.m. to get her meds. We were all so jealous, someone else chimed in. And that crappy apartment off campus who didn't know about the room felt like it was being stretched thin. Harper could hear her own heartbeat, but strangely, she didn't feel the sharp pain she felt earlier. When pain is repeated enough times, it turns into a numb clarity. She looked at the faces around the table and felt more pity than anger. These people were in their 30s. Some were parents, some were married, yet they were giddy with the thrill of using a man's private past as a parlor trick, completely ignoring the fact that his legal wife was sitting right there. Vivian raised her glass, her eyes glazed with a perfectly calculated tipsiness. We were broke, but it was magic. We'd share a $5 pizza because it was all we had. When the heater broke, Cole would wrap me in his heavy coat so I could sleep. It sounds cliché, but those are years I will never ever forget. Cole looked down and smiled. He didn't confirm it, but he didn't deny it either. Harper suddenly understood. Sometimes a man's silence is crueler than a blatant betrayal. His silence was permission. His silence sided with the woman actively humiliating his wife. His silence allowed the daggers to sink in as long as he got to sit there basking in the ego-stroking glory of being desired by 2 women. She picked up her phone and texted Maya. If I call you in 15 minutes, answer it. Don't ask questions, Maya replied instantly. Understood. At that moment, Phil clapped his hands. Let's play truth or dare. Well, just truth. Let's get the dirt. People cheered, especially those deep into their wine. An empty Bordeaux bottle was placed in the center of the table to spin. Harper watched the green glass spin under the chandelier. She felt incredibly serene. She knew this game wasn't spontaneous. It was a loaded gun placed on the table. Everyone pretended it was a toy, but the person spinning it knew exactly who they were aiming at. The first spin landed on Tara. She was asked about her college crush and blushed, naming a guy that made the table roar with laughter. The second spin landed on Liam, who told an embarrassing story about a recent job interview. The room was buzzing, but Harper noticed Vivian sitting upright, her fingers tracing the rim of her wine glass, her eyes tracking the bottle. Cole was quieter now, but made no move to stop the game. The bottles spun again, the neck pointed directly at Vivian. "Oh, it's on, give her a good one." Vivian laughed, leaning back. "Go easy on me, guys." Tara looked at Vivian, then at Cole, and finally shot a malicious, gleeful look at Harper. She thought she was just adding some spicy entertainment to the night. "All right, truth time. If you could go back to senior year, Vivian, would you still have chosen to leave Cole?" The room froze. Vivian didn't answer right away. She stared at Cole for a long, agonizing moment, her eyes welling up with tears. Then slowly she whispered, "No, if I could go back, I would have stayed, because some people, when you lose them once, it hurts for a lifetime." A collective gasp echoed in the room. Some thought it was genuinely romantic, some just loved the drama. Cole sat completely paralyzed, his hand gripping his wineglass so tightly his knuckles turned white. Harper saw it clearly. Vivian turned to Harper, her voice quiet but carrying across the dead silent room. "Harper, you are so incredibly lucky. You got the man I loved with my entire youth." Harper stared at her, then she smiled. "Whether I'm lucky or not is probably a question you should ask the person actually living in this marriage." Vivian's smile vanished. Cole's head whipped around. "Harper." It was a low, heavy warning. Harper rested her hand on her clutch, feeling the hard edge of the recording iPhone. She didn't avoid Cole's glare. She looked at him, like he was a stranger who had just crossed a point of no return, yet still foolishly believed he had the authority to give her orders. The dinner wasn't over, but something inside Harper had permanently closed. Cole's warning wasn't loud, but it was enough to silence the table. His tone held that familiar irritation, the annoyance of a man used to his wife backing down the moment he lowered his voice. Usually, a single scowl meant she needed to check herself, apologize for not being tactful, and shrink back into her corner to preserve the peace. Harper used to be exactly that woman. She used to believe that spouses shouldn't keep score, especially in public. She thought her endurance was a sign of maturity, the glue holding their home together. But tonight, surrounded by fake laughter and eyes hungry for her humiliation, Harper realized that enduring abuse doesn't make a family stronger. It just teaches people that your pain is acceptable collateral damage. She looked at Cole, her voice steady. "Why are you saying my name like that? Did I say something factually incorrect?" Cole ground his jaw, desperate to maintain his polished image in front of his peers. "I just don't want you making things tense. It's a reunion. People are just reminiscing." Harper nodded slightly. "Then I am just talking about the present. Presently, I am your wife. I have a right to establish what boundaries deserve respect." Her words weren't screaming, but they hit the table like lead weights. A few people looked at their laps. Tara took a nervous gulp of wine. Liam forced a laugh to break the ice. "Man, you married folks are too serious. Spin the bottle. Let's keep it moving." Vivian, playing the wounded gazelle, put her glass down and sighed shakily. "Harper, I really didn't mean anything by it. If my words offended you, I apologize. It's just seeing everyone brings up old emotions. Some things are hard to control." Harper looked at Vivian. She recognized this brand of apology intimately. It wasn't about taking accountability, it was a manipulative trap. If Harper kept pushing, she was the crazy, unforgiving if Harper stayed quiet. Vivian got to play the graceful, fragile victim. There clears throat are people in this world who don't need to raise their voices to back you into a corner. They use tears as weapons, weaponize the past as a beautiful tragedy, and use the silence of men to validate their own importance. Harper gave a faint smile. "It's fine, keep talking. Sometimes it's better to put everything clearly on the table rather than leaving people to guess." Vivian faltered. Cole stared at Harper, his eyes darkening. It was as if he couldn't recognize the woman sitting next to him. She was wearing the dress he picked out. Her makeup was flawless. Her voice was soft, but not a single word she spoke was bending to his will anymore. The game continued, but the air was poisoned. The bottle spun a few more times. People were asked about their salaries, their biggest fights with their spouses. Everyone laughed it off, but eyes kept darting toward Harper, Cole, and Vivienne. Then the bottle stopped squarely pointing at Cole. The table erupted. "Oh, perfect timing. Cole, you have to answer. No pleading the fifth, you're the main event tonight." Cole leaned back in his chair, offering a tight smile. "Fine, truth." Phil rubbed his hands together, trying to think of a softball question to diffuse the tension. But Tara was faster. The wine had made her bold, and her natural toxicity couldn't pass up the opportunity. She leaned forward, half joking. "If you could do it all over again, Cole, would you still choose your current life?" The room practically flash froze. The question didn't explicitly mention Vivian, nor did it name Harper, but everyone knew exactly where the landmine was buried. Cole didn't answer immediately. He picked up his wine glass, watching the red liquid catch the light. He stayed silent for so long that Harper could hear the hum of the AC vent above them. Once upon a time, Harper would have been terrified. She would have silently begged her husband to say something decent, even if it was a lie to save face. But now she was incredibly calm. She actually wanted to hear it loud and clear. You can't treat a bleeding wound if you keep throwing a towel over it and pretending it's fine. Finally, Cole set the glass down. "My current life isn't bad, but if I said I didn't have any regrets, I'd be lying." A tiny gasp rippled through the room. Vivian looked down, her lip trembling as if his words had struck the deepest chord in her soul. Harper just sat there. The word regrets didn't make her cry. It was simply the final key turning in the lock. Behind that door wasn't some tragic, unfulfilled romance. It was the naked selfishness of a man who wanted his cake and wanted to eat it too. He wanted a wife to manage his house and a past lover to stroke his ego. Phil frantically tried to laugh it off. "Ah, the regrets of youth. Who doesn't have them?" Liam jumped in. "Exactly. What guy in his 30s doesn't have the one that got away?" The casual misogyny felt like a slap in the face. Harper looked at Liam, not with rage, but with utter amusement. These men were using cheap, romanticized tropes to cover for each other's lack of accountability. They called it regret and destiny. But if their wives sat in front of a room full of people and publicly swooned over an ex-boyfriend, would they be laughing it off with such grace? Vivian looked up, her eyes glossy. "I'm sorry. Maybe I just came back at the wrong time." Cole looked at her, his voice dropping into a tender register. "It has nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you." Then who did it have to do with, Harper? Did it have to do with the 6 years of marriage that had faded into the background of his ambition? Harper lowered her eyes, her hand tightening around her clutch. The old iPhone was recording every syllable, every pregnant pause. A cold, impartial witness. Just then, Cole's phone screen lit up on the table. He reflexively moved to flip it over, but Harper had already seen it. The sender wasn't Vivian. It was a contact, saved simply as Dan, his firm's accountant. The preview text read, "Cole." The $30,000 transferred to Vivian's account cleared. Harper felt the blood in her veins stop cold for one terrifying second. $30,000, Vivian's account. All the disjointed puzzle pieces violently slammed together. The Lake Geneva project. The pitch deck. Vivian had seen the missing marital funds. The late-night phone calls, the changed passwords, Vivian's arrogant confidence tonight, Cole's icy distance at home. It wasn't just an old flame, it wasn't just emotional infidelity at a high school reunion. It was money, a lot of money, money that belonged to their joint savings, money that her parents had scraped together for him. Money Cole was secretly funneling into his ex-girlfriend's pockets under the guise of branding consulting, while leaving his wife at home to cook his dinner, pay the mortgage, and play the good little trophy. Harper didn't explode. She knew if she screamed, Cole would grab his phone, deny it, call her crazy, and gaslight her into oblivion. She picked up her water glass and took a sip. The ice water slid down her throat, but she felt nothing. Her mind was operating with terrifying clarity. She needed proof, not a gut feeling, not a hunch, not some vague emotional slight at a dinner party. She needed hard evidence so that when she walked out of this marriage, she wouldn't leave empty-handed. And she wouldn't let her parents be dragged into financial ruin because they trusted a snake. The bottle spun again. It landed dead on Harper. The table practically salivated. Tara smiled, though she looked a bit wet-wearier now. Harper, truth or dare? Harper put her glass down. Truth. Liam clapped. Nice. Let's keep it light. Harper, have you ever been jealous of Cole's past? A seemingly simple question, but everyone knew exactly what he was asking. Vivian looked at Harper, waiting for the crack. Cole frowned, clearly wanting Harper to give a polished, face-saving PR answer. But Harper was done saving face. She looked straight at Liam, then slowly panned her gaze across the table. Jealous of the past? No. Because if the past is truly in the past, it isn't worth a present wife's tears. She paused, letting the silence hang. What hurts a wife isn't who her husband used to love. It's when her husband lets the ex walk right into their present. When he lets her know more about his business than his own wife does. When he lets her parade their private memories in public. And worst of all, Harper locked eyes with Cole when family money starts flowing in a direction the wife doesn't know about. The room suffered a catastrophic silence. Cole's face drained of color. Vivian sat frozen. Harper turned slowly to her husband, her voice perfectly even. Cole, what exactly was that $30,000 transfer for? The question dropped into the center of the table like a live grenade. The illusion of the glamorous reunion shattered. The only sound in the room was the faint trickling of the decorative water feature in the corner. Harper sat with perfect posture, her hand resting lightly on her clutch, her eyes boring into Cole. She didn't yell, but her terrifying calm sent a chill down the spines of everyone watching. If she had flipped the table and screamed, they could have written her off as hysterical, but calling out a specific massive dollar amount. Addressing her husband by his first name, with dead-eyed precision that was lethal, Cole froze for 3 agonizing seconds before his hand darted to his phone. The screen was black, but the sheer panic flashing across his features was impossible to hide. He leaned in, his voice a low, vicious hiss. "What the hell are you talking about?" Harper didn't blink. "I'm asking you what was the $30. Zero transferred to Vivian's account for next to him." Vivian turned the color of ash. She put her wine glass down so unsteadily that the stem clacked loudly against the mahogany table. Tara, who had been loving the drama a minute ago, looked genuinely terrified. Phil opened his mouth to intervene but snapped it shut. Financial infidelity wasn't a game you played at a reunion. Cole ground his teeth, desperate to retain control. "It's a business expense. If you don't understand how my firm operates, don't spout nonsense in front of my friends." Harper nodded slowly. "A business expense? Then why was it wired directly into Vivian's personal checking account? She's consulting on the branding for the Lake Geneva project." "It's a retainer, a $30,000 retainer?" Harper asked, with no signed contract, without notifying wife. "Which account did that money come from, Cole?" The way she said his name made his skin crawl. She had never spoken to him like this, let alone publicly backed him into a corner. He slammed his phone face down on the table, losing his temper. "Harper, that is enough. I don't need your permission to run my business. Who do you think you are to interrogate me like a criminal?" Harper looked at the man in front of her. Something inside her didn't break. It just finally detached and floated away. She used to think the most painful part of a failing marriage was discovering your husband didn't love you anymore. Now she knew the truth. The worst pain is realizing that the man you sacrificed for, compromised for, and protected views you with such contempt that his only response to getting caught stealing is, "Who do you think you are?" She kept her voice soft. "I am your wife, and if that money is tied to our marital assets, I have every legal right to ask." Vivian jumped in, her voice trembling, dropping the femme fatale act entirely. "Harper, you're misunderstanding. Cole and I are just collaborating. That money is in advance for a comprehensive brand identity package. There is nothing shady going on." Harper turned her gaze to Vivian. "Then where is the contract?" Vivian choked. It's being drafted. Where is the scope of work? The invoice? We negotiated it verbally." You negotiated a $30,000 verbal agreement with a married man while his wife was kept in the dark. Harper tilted her head. Vivian, you're a branding consultant. You know damn well, professional corporate transactions don't operate in the shadows like this. Vivian flushed crimson, then went pale. The people around the table were looking at her differently now. 5 minutes ago, she was the tragic, glamorous ex-girlfriend. But when 30 grand entered the chat, the romantic glow evaporated. You can sympathize with a lost love, but nobody defends a woman secretly draining a married couple's bank account. Cole stood up abruptly. We're done here. We are leaving. He reached out and grabbed Harper's wrist to pull her up. Harper yanked her arm back with such violent precision that Cole stumbled forward. I'm not going anywhere, she said. Harper, stop humiliating me. Harper actually laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. It was the exhale of 6 years of suffocated rage. You're afraid of being humiliated. Where was that fear when Vivian was throwing your past in my face? Where was your fear of humiliating me when you let them laugh about your regrets? Where was your fear when you transferred $30,000, knowing full well that $80,000 of the seed money for your firm came from my parents' retirement savings? The air in the room was sucked out entirely. Cole stepped back, his eyes darting wildly. Bringing up Harper's parents was his kryptonite. 3 years ago, when his firm was going under, Harper's parents had cashed out a chunk of their 401 to loan them the $80,000. No interest, just a desperate plea for their son-in-law to succeed. Hull had sat at their dining table, calling them mom and dad, promising to take care of Harper forever. And now he was using that foundation to fund his ex-girlfriend's consulting fee. Phil coughed loudly, trying to salvage the night. Hey guys, maybe you should take this home. It's really not the place. Harper looked at Phil, perfectly polite. Phil, I appreciate it, but earlier when my husband's private past was being used as parlor entertainment, nobody felt it wasn't the place. Now that I'm asking about a massive financial transaction regarding my marriage, suddenly it's inconvenient. Who decides what's convenient here? Phil shut his mouth. Liam stared at his empty plate. Tara was twisting her napkin into a tight knot, looking thoroughly ashamed. Vivian looked at Cole in sheer panic. She had wanted Harper to look like a pathetic, insecure nag. Instead, Vivian was the one exposed under the harsh fluorescent lights of reality. Cole lowered his voice to a dangerous whisper. I told you it's business capital. If you want to see the ledgers, we'll go home and I'll show you. Harper stared at him. Then unlock your phone right now. Show me the text from Dan. Show me which account the transfer originated from. Show me the thread where you negotiated this fee. Show me right now and I will get on my knees and apologize to you in front of this entire room. Cole's jaw locked. Vivian spoke up, crying on cue. Harper, you are violating his privacy. This is insane. Harper looked at her, speaking very slowly. Vivian, you took money from my husband. You sat next to him tonight and reminisced about sleeping in his coat in front of me. And now you're lecturing me about boundaries and privacy. Do you not hear how ridiculous you sound? Whispers broke out at the end of the table. This is bad, someone muttered. If it's joint money, she has a right to know, a wife whispered to her husband. Cole gripped his phone so hard it looked like it might snap. Have you been tracking my phone? He accused. No, Harper said. The text popped up right in front of me. Just like Vivian, sat right in front of me talking about things a woman with an ounce of self-respect would have kept to herself. Vivian shot up from her chair, tears spilling over. You are out of line. I apologized earlier. What more do you want? Are you so deeply insecure that you have to turn into a monster just to feel safe? Cole instantly moved toward her. Viv, sit down, it's okay. Before he could finish, Harper calmly pulled her own phone from her clutch. She tapped a contact and hit dial. She looked at Cole one last time. You want to know what I want? I want the truth. And since you won't give it to me, I'm taking it. The call connected immediately. Harper, I'm here. It was Maya. Harper hit the speakerphone button, her voice echoing in the silent room. Maya, call Attorney Thomas. I need an emergency consult tonight regarding my husband transferring $30,000 into marital assets to a third-party woman without my consent. The room collectively stopped breathing. Cole went ghostly pale. Vivian physically recoiled, genuine terror replacing her theatrical tears. Maya's voice came through crisp and utterly professional, devoid of panic, but sharp enough to slice glass. I will call Thomas right now. He specializes in family law and asset dissipation. Where are you? Harper looked at Cole, then at Vivian, and read out the address of the River House, including the private room number. Do not sign anything, Maya instructed over the speaker. Do not hand your phone to anyone. Do not leave the restaurant alone with Cole. If you feel unsafe, keep recording. I am on my way. I am on my way. Those words completely broke Cole's facade. He lunged forward, furious. Harper, you are turning our marriage into a circus freak show. Harper ended the call, placing the phone on the table. No, Cole. The person who turned our marriage into a circus is the one who hired his ex-girlfriend, wired her our money, let her humiliate his wife at a dinner party, and then tried to gaslight his wife when she caught him. Cole was hyperventilating, rubbing his temples in a desperate attempt to maintain his sanity. The man who had spent years using his wife's silence as a safety net suddenly realized the net had been cut. Vivian was trembling beside him. She realized then that this was no longer a game of emotional manipulation. A nostalgic love story can be painted with pretty words and fake tears, but a $30,000 wire transfer leaves a paper trail. Phil stood up again, looking sick. Cole, Harper, this is beyond us. Why don't you guys take the private room next door? We'll stay here. Thank you, Phil. But no, Harper said politely. Whatever needed to be private should have been respected hours ago. Since everyone here was more than happy to listen to my husband's past, I think it's only fair everyone gets to witness his present. Phil sat down heavily. Liam wouldn't make eye contact with anyone. Several of the wives in the room were looking at Harper with profound, quiet solidarity. They knew that if they were in her shoes, very few of them would have had the icy composure to execute this. Cole dropped his voice to a desperate, placating tone. Fine. You want fairness? I'll explain. The $30,000 was a temporary loan to Vivian to help expedite the branding collateral for the Lake Geneva pitch. If we land the deal, the ROI will cover that tenfold. I didn't tell you because you always worry. You overthink everything. I didn't want the stress alone, Harper said. From whose money? Cole faltered. From the firm's operating account. It's my company. Harper smiled a sad, devastating smile. Is it? If the seed money for your firm came from my parents' retirement fund, and the ongoing capital was built during our marriage, and you wired it without a contract, it's not just your money to give away. Cole stared at her in horror. Who coached you to say this? Maya, a lawyer. Nobody needs to coach a wife on how to survive when her husband starts hiding money, she replied, silencing him completely. Vivian wiped her face, trying to play the diplomat. Harper, I swear I didn't know the money came from your parents' loan. If I had known, I never would have taken it. But you have to understand Cole's pressure. Lake Geneva is massive. He needed an expert, and I just moved back. I was trying to help him. Harper looked at her, her eyes lethal. You're an expert. Okay, what is the name of your LLC? Vivian froze. I operate as a sole proprietor right now. Do you have a registered EIN, a business address? I just moved back from London. I haven't set it up yet. Do you have a scope of work document, a master services agreement, a timeline of deliverables? Every question was a stone skipping across a pond, shattering the beautiful reflection Vivian was trying to project. Vivian opened her mouth, but couldn't form a coherent sentence. Hole stepped in. Are you interrogating her? I'm tracing my family's $30,000. Asking for a receipt seems perfectly reasonable, Harper shot back. A woman sitting near the door, one of the spouses muttered just loud enough to be heard. She's not wrong. If it's a real business deal, where's the contract? That single comment broke the dam. The whispers grew louder. 30 grand is a lot of money. Wiring it to an ex is a terrible look. She has every right to be pissed. Cole's face burned with humiliation. He had walked into this room as the golden boy, the successful architect, the object of desire. In less than 30 minutes, he had been exposed as a fraud, a liar, and a thief. He lunged forward, grabbing Harper's wrist and yanking her out of her chair. We are leaving right now. His grip was bruising. Harper winced, but before she could pry herself loose, Phil was on his feet. Cole, let her go. Jesus. Cole whipped his head around. Stay out of my marriage, Phil. I don't care about your marriage, but you are not dragging your wife out of my event like a caveman. Phil barked back. Harper looked at Cole's hand clamped around her wrist. The dull pain radiating up her arm paradoxically cleared her mind completely. With her free hand, she pulled her phone from the table, opened the camera, and hit record, pointing the lens directly at Cole's hand on her arm. Cole, she said, her voice echoing in the room. Let go of me. I will say it one more time. Take your hand off me. Cole stared at the glowing red recording dot, then at the horrified faces of his college friends. Slowly, mechanically, he released her. A red angry ring was already blooming on Harper's pale skin. Vivian stood in the background, looking physically ill. She finally realized this wasn't a game of high school jealousy she could win with a pout. She had walked into a legal and financial war zone. Harper rubbed her wrist, put the phone down, and stood up straight. I am not going home with you. Maya is on her way. The lawyer will contact you. If you have an explanation, you can put it in a sworn affidavit with your receipts. But if you think you can use physical intimidation to shut me up, you are severely mistaken. Cole's voice was hoarse. How far are you willing to take this? Harper looked at him for a long time. The pain and disappointment in her eyes had finally been eclipsed by absolute resolve. It's not about how far I'm taking it. It's about the fact that you took it too far, and you assumed I would shrink myself down to keep you comfortable. The heavy oak doors swung open. A waiter stood there looking terrified, followed immediately by Maya. Mia was still in her navy blue office blazer, her hair messy from the wind, breathing hard. Her eyes scanned the room and instantly locked onto the red bruise on Harper's wrist. Mia's face went ice cold. Who put their hands on you? The tension in the room snapped tight as a wire. Harper looked at her best friend and for the first time all night, her eyes stung with tears, but she kept her spine rigid. I'm okay, I just need you to be a witness. Maya stepped fully into the room. She knew Harper better than anyone. Harper was a peacemaker. If she was standing in a room full of people demanding a witness, things had crossed a line from which there was no return. Cole glared at Maya. Maya, this is family business. Stay out of it. Maya let out a dark, mocking laugh. Family business, Cole? If this was just family business, she wouldn't have called me. And don't hide behind the word family to justify abusing your wife and silencing her. A few people gasped. Cole's jaw tightened. Vivian was clinging to the back of her chair. Her confidence completely evaporated. Mia wasn't some bystander enjoying the drama. She was a fiercely loyal advocate, and she was here for war. Harper tugged Mia's sleeve. Let's just go. Maya nodded, keeping herself positioned between Harper and Cole. Just then, Mia's phone rang. She looked at the screen, then hit speakerphone. Thomas, I'm with Harper. The calm, authoritative voice of attorney Thomas filled the room. Hello, Harper. Maya gave me the brief. First, remain calm. Right now, you need to do 3 things. 1. Secure all evidence, texts, recordings, and photos of any physical injuries. 2. Do not engage in further arguments, especially if the opposing party is escalating. 3. Demand that all financial communications be documented. If $30,000 of marital assets was transferred to a third party without your consent, and it is not a documented business expense, we will file for an injunction on asset dissipation. The entire room was paralyzed. No one expected a literal lawyer to be dictating terms over speakerphone at a class reunion. Cole panicked. Look, man, you're a lawyer. You should hear both sides before making accusations. Thomas replied evenly. I haven't made an accusation, sir. I am advising my prospective client on how to protect her legal rights. If you possess legitimate business contracts to justify the wire transfer, you will have the opportunity to present them during discovery. Cole was speechless. Vivian, terrified of being dragged into a lawsuit, stammered. I'm not a third party in a bad way. I'm just consulting. I can wire the money back right now if everyone is going to be this crazy about it. Harper looked at her. You can wire it back, meaning you still have the exact funds? Vivian choked. It was a fatal slip. If it was a legitimate consulting fee for work already commenced, why would she offer to refund it instantly? If it was a real business transaction, why were there no contracts? And if the money was untouched, why was Cole hiding it from his wife? The expressions on the faces of the classmates morphed from shock to disgust. Tara looked away. Liam pretended to text someone. Phil rubbed his temples. There was no defending this. Cole turned to Vivian, his eyes filled with rage. "Shut up, Viv." Vivian trembled. For the first time all night, she realized she wasn't the star of a romantic tragic comedy. She was a liability in a divorce settlement. All her arrogance, the red dress, the smug smirks, the passive-aggressive jabs, it all looked incredibly cheap under the harsh fluorescent lights of reality. Maya looked at Harper. "Did you get the audio?" Harper paused, then nodded. "Yes." Cole's face went white. "You recorded me?" Harper turned to him. "I recorded a public dinner party, a party where you and Vivian freely admitted to things you shouldn't have. If you didn't do anything wrong. Why are you scared?" "That's a violation of two-party consent," Cole yelled. Thomas spoke up over the phone. "Illinois is a two-party consent state for private conversations. But in a crowded public restaurant with no reasonable expectation of privacy, the evidentiary rules are complex. However, preserving the recording to protect against physical intimidation or perjury is highly recommended. Harper, do not distribute the file to anyone but me." "Understood," Harper said. Cole stared at Harper in disbelief. He was used to the Harper who made sure his shirts were ironed, who asked what he wanted for dinner, who swallowed her doubts just to keep him happy. The Harper standing before him was actively preserving evidence for a divorce attorney. He felt a surge of rage, but underneath it was the terrifying realization that he had completely lost control. Cole's phone started buzzing again. He lunged for it, but Maya had already seen the caller ID. "Oh look, it's Dan the accountant." "Why don't you answer it on speaker, Cole?" Cole froze. The phone vibrated in his hand, echoing through the silent room like a ticking bomb. Finally, he hit decline. Harper didn't press the issue. The fact that he refused to answer told the entire room everything they needed to know. Thomas spoke again. "Harper, you and Maya need to leave the premises immediately. Go to your parents' house or a safe location. Tomorrow morning, bring your marriage certificate, the condo deed, the promissory note from your parents and any bank statements to my office. Do not engage with him tonight." "Yes, Thomas," Harper said. Cole lost it. "You're dragging your parents into this. Are you trying to destroy our house, Harper?" Harper looked at him for a long time. Her heart physically ached at the word house. She had built that house with him. Every piece of furniture, every meal, every compromise she made with his overbearing mother. But he was using the concept of their house to make her the villain. She spoke softly. "I'm not destroying our house, Cole. I'm just refusing to stand inside it while you burn it to the ground." Cole was struck dumb. Harper picked up her clutch. Ma stood close beside her. As they walked toward the door, Harper glanced at Vivian one last time. Vivian was staring at the floor, humiliated. Harper didn't curse at her or gloat. The biggest loser tonight wasn't the betrayed wife, but the woman who thought she could build her happiness on someone else's destruction, only to realize the man she was fighting for was a coward. Just as Harper reached the door, her phone rang. The caller ID flashed. Eleanor Hull saw it, and a glimmer of desperate hope crossed his face. His mother was his ultimate trump card. Harper answered and put it on speaker. Eleanor's frantic, angry voice blasted through the phone. "Harper, what on earth are you doing? Cole just texted me saying, you're causing a massive scene at his networking event. You get home right now and we will discuss this in private. Do not humiliate my son in front of his colleagues." Harper closed her eyes for a second, took a breath, and spoke clearly. "Eleanor, I am leaving, but before I go, you should know that your son secretly wired $30,000 of our marital money to his ex-girlfriend. He also grabbed me hard enough to leave bruises in front of 20 people. If you still believe I am the one humiliating your family, then tomorrow I will bring my parents and my lawyer to your house, and we can discuss it in front of a judge." Dead silence on the line. The entire dining room was silent. Harper didn't wait for a reply. She hung up and she and Maya walked out of the heavy oak doors. Behind her, she heard the screech of a chair being pushed back, someone calling Cole's name and the faint sound of Vivian sobbing. Harper didn't look back. Out on the riverwalk, the freezing Chicago wind whipped against her face. Harper stopped by the railing for a few seconds, as a single tear slipped down her cheek, quickly wiped away by the wind. Mia didn't say a word, she just wrapped her arm around Harper's shoulders. "Maya," Harper whispered, "I need to go back to the condo to get my documents tonight." "Okay," Mia said firmly, "I'm coming with you." Harper sat in the passenger seat of Mia's SUV as they drove toward Lincoln Park. Her hands rested on her knees. The red marks on her wrist were fading into a dull ache, but the emptiness in her chest was overwhelming. The city blurred past the rain, strares. People were still out, laughing, drinking, heading home to safe, warm lives. Harper felt like she had just been ejected from her own life and had nowhere to land. Maya kept the radio off. She drove carefully, occasionally glancing at Harper, but never pressing her to talk. True friends know when silence is the greatest comfort. After a long time, Harper whispered, "Was I stupid, Maya? There were so many red flags. Why did I keep believing him?" Maya kept her eyes on the road, her voice fierce. "You aren't stupid. Good people project goodness onto others. You just existed honorably in a relationship with someone who lost his honor." Harper fell silent. She thought about the nights she waited up with dinner, the late meetings, the phone face down on the counter. She had ignored it all because she couldn't fathom that the man who had promised her parents he would protect her was actively plotting an exit strategy. When they pulled into the condo's parking garage, Harper hesitated. She looked at the building where she had picked out the curtains, the rugs, the potted plants on the balcony. When they first moved in, she had FaceTimed her mother, crying happy tears. "Mom, we finally have a home." Her mother had replied, "A house is just walls, honey. A home is where you know you are loved." Now she realized this place was just a hotel Cole used, and she was the unpaid concierge. "I'm coming up with you," Maya said. Killing the engine. "Grab your papers, pack a bag, and we're leaving." "You're staying with me tonight." They rode the elevator to the 11th floor. The numbers ticked by agonizingly slow. The hallway was dead quiet. Harper unlocked the door. The apartment smelled of the jasmine diffuser she had refilled that morning. The vase of fresh hydrangeas was on the dining table. Cole's trench coat was draped over a chair. The normally was nauseating. Harper walked straight to the bedroom, pulled the wooden lockbox from the top shelf of the closet, and dumped it on the bed. The marriage certificate, the deed, the bank statements, the $80,000 promissory note. Maya immediately began snapping high-resolution photos of every page with her phone. "Originals go in your bag, backups on my phone," Mia said. "Can never be too careful." Harper grabbed a manila envelope and began stuffing the documents inside. As she opened Cole's bedside drawer to look for a specific tax document, she noticed a thick, unlabeled folder tucked beneath his leather journal. She normally never snooped, but tonight the rules were dead. She pulled the folder out and opened it. The first page was a draft of the Lake Geneva Resort brand consulting agreement. The consultant was listed as Vivian. The paying entity was Cole's firm, but what made Harper's blood turn to ice was a handwritten addendum clipped to the back. It explicitly stated that the $30,000 advance would be deducted from Vivian's back-end equity payout once the project was completed. At the bottom were Cole's initials. Maya leaned over, her face hardening. "Keep that." Harper read further, and her heart stopped. There was another legal draft tucked inside. A postnuptial agreement draft. One clause was circled in red ink. Upon finalizing the separation of marital assets, Party A Cole retains sole equity in the firm and all prospective hospitality projects, insulating said assets from current marital dissolution. Current marital dissolution. He wasn't just hiding money. He was actively strategizing a divorce. He was legally insulating his new life while keeping her completely in the dark, letting her pay half the mortgage and cook his meals while he plotted her financial ruin. Harper sank onto the edge of the bed, the papers trembling in her hands. Maya sat next to her, gripping her shoulder. Harper, look at me. You have to stay sharp. This paper is exactly what's going to save you and your parents. Harper took a ragged breath and forced her tears back. Suddenly, the front door's electronic lock beeped. Maya shot to her feet. Harper stood up, clutching the manila envelope. The front door slammed open, and Cole stormed into the apartment. He didn't have Vivian with him, but he looked completely unhinged. He had clearly sped home the second they left the restaurant. His tie was ripped off, his hair a mess, his eyes locked onto the envelope in Harper's hand, then to the Lake Geneva file on the bed. You went through my things. Harper held up the draft postnup. You mean your secret blueprint to defraud your wife? Cole blanched. For a fraction of a second, absolute terror flashed across his face. He lunged toward her to grab the folder. Maya stepped squarely between them, shoving Cole back with both hands. Don't you dare touch her, Cole. Mia barked. Get out of my house, Maya, he screamed. It's my house too, Harper said coldly. Cole turned his venom on her. What do you want, Harper? A divorce? Fine, if you want a divorce, well, get one. But don't think you can use some stolen drafted papers to extort me. The firm is mine. The project is mine. You're an interior designer making 90 grand a year. How the hell are you going to fight me? Hearing him scream the word, divorce didn't hurt as much as Harper thought it would. Her heart had already broken when he called his past with Vivian a regret. It broke when he let Vivian humiliate her. She looked him dead in the eye. You're right, I want a divorce, but I'm not leaving empty-handed, and I am damn sure not going to let you use my parents' life savings to buy a new life for your mistress. Cole froze. Maya squeezed Harper's hand. Suddenly, Cole's phone rang. It was Eleanor again. He answered it, accidentally leaving it on speaker. Cole, where are you? Eleanor shrieked. Vivian just called me, sobbing hysterically. She said Harper assaulted her character in front of everyone. You bring Harper to my house this instant. I am going to set that girl straight. Harper closed her eyes, then stepped forward, speaking loudly enough for the mic to catch. Eleanor, I am at the condo. I am leaving, but I won't be coming to your house to be lectured. I am taking my legal documents, and tomorrow I will be bringing my parents and my attorney to meet with you. We will lay everything out on the table. Dead silence from Eleanor. Cole stared at Harper. The panic in his eyes was absolute. He had lost the narrative. Eleanor's voice came back, much weaker but still trying to dominate. Harper, what are you talking about? Lawyers, parents? We don't air dirty laundry to outsiders. My parents are not outsiders, Eleanor, Harper said. They loaned your son $80,000. And if your son is using that money to fund his ex-girlfriend while plotting to separate his assets behind my back, my parents have every right to know. You're being hysterical, Eleanor cried. Cole is a businessman. Moving money is normal, and Vivian is helping him. Why are you so jealous? Maya laughed out loud, a harsh, bitter sound. Harper didn't laugh. She just felt a profound, exhausting chill. Even now, presented with the facts, her mother-in-law blamed her for not being a cool, understanding wife. Cole frantically took the phone off speaker. Mom, I'll handle it, he hissed and hung up. Harper zipped the envelope into her tote bag and grabbed the small suitcase she had packed. Let's go, Maya. Cole blocked the bedroom door. Where do you think you're taking those documents? To a safe place, Harper said. Those belong to this house. They belong to me. Cole sneered, though the bravado was cracking. You think having those papers means you win? Don't be naive. The LLC is in my name. The contacts are mine. You're nothing without me. Maya stepped up. But Harper put a hand out to stop her. There were some battles she had to fight herself. I'm not trying to win, Cole. I'm just taking back what's mine. You have the LLC, but I have the paper trail. You have the project, but I have the promissory note. You have Vivian, but I have the truth. Cole was struck silent. He realized Harper wasn't operating on emotion anymore. She was operating on logic. And when a woman who loved you unconditionally switches to cold logic, it means she is gone forever. The doorbell suddenly rang. All three of them jumped. Cole went to the front door and ripped it open. It was Eleanor. She had taken an Uber straight from her Gold Coast apartment. She was wearing a trench coat over her pajamas, her hair a mess, her face dark with fury. She marched inside, glaring at Harper's suitcase and the tote bag. Are you actually packing your bags? Hello, Eleanor, Harper said calmly. Don't use that tone with me. Eleanor pointed a manicured finger. What do you want? Do you want to destroy this family? Is that what will make you happy? Harper gripped her bag. I want a clean divorce. Eleanor staggered back. She had thought Harper was just throwing a tantrum. She never expected her to actually pull the trigger. A divorce over a misunderstanding at a party. Do you have any idea how this makes us look? You're in your 30s, Harper. You think life out there is easy for a divorced woman? I've spent 6 years worrying about how things look, Eleanor, Harper said. I kept my mouth shut when you blamed me for not having kids yet. I kept my mouth shut when you treated my parents like second-class citizens. I kept my mouth shut when Cole worked 80-hour weeks and locked his phone. But if I stay silent while he steals from my family to fund his mistress, I'm not protecting a family, I'm burying myself. Eleanor turned pale. Cole flinched. Leave the kid thing out of this, he muttered. Why? Harper asked, turning to him. It's part of this marriage. For 3 years, you let your mother blame me for being infertile. But did you ever show up to the fertility clinic appointments? No, you were always too busy. You let me hate my own body while you were planning your escape. Cole couldn't look her in the eye. Maya's gaze softened. She knew the fertility struggles were Harper's deepest, most guarded wound. To weaponize it was Cole's greatest sin. Eleanor tried to salvage the situation. We can fix this. Cole will get the money back. I'll make sure Vivian stays away, just don't make a scene. Harper shook her head. It's not about Vivian. If it wasn't her, it would be someone else. Cole doesn't respect me. I will not live in a house where I have to beg for basic human decency. Cole stepped forward, his voice finally breaking. Harper, please stop. I'll admit I messed up. I shouldn't have hidden the money, but divorce is extreme. We can work this out. It was the first time he admitted fault, but it brought Harper zero comfort. He wasn't sorry he did it. He was sorry he got caught. It's too late, Cole, she said. She walked past him, pulling her suitcase. Eleanor yelled after her. If you walk out that door tonight, you are dead to this family. Harper stopped at the threshold and looked back at her mother-in-law. Eleanor, I didn't destroy this family. I'm just the only one brave enough to say out loud that it's been dead for a long time. She and Maya walked out. The door clicked shut behind them. It was a soft sound, but to Harper it sounded like a vault locking on a previous life. Harper didn't go to her parents' house in the suburbs that night. She knew if she showed up at midnight, with bloodshot eyes and a suitcase, it would break their hearts. She stayed with Maya in her cozy Wicker Park apartment, smelling of ginger tea and old books. Mia gave her a pair of sweatpants, made her tea, and set up a hard drive. Go shower. I'm backing up the audio files in 3 different cloud drives. Under the hot water, Harper finally let herself break down. She scrubbed at the red bruise on her wrist, sobbing into her hands, grieving the girl who had tried so hard to be perfect for a man who didn't care. By 2 a.m., Harper's phone was blowing up. Texts from Cole swinging wildly from rage to begging. You're being irrational. I'll get the money back. Vivian means nothing to me. Means nothing, the universal rallying cry of a guilty man. Harper didn't reply. She handed the phone to Maya and went to sleep on the sofa. The next morning, Harper called her parents. When her mother answered, Harper didn't cry. She explained everything methodically. The $30,000, the postnup draft, the lawyer. Her father took the phone, his voice thick with emotion. Where are you? At Maya's. We're meeting the lawyer at 9 a.m. We are coming with you, her dad said fiercely. You are not carrying this alone. At 9:00 a.m. inside Attorney Thomas's sleek downtown office, Harper's parents arrived. Her dad looked older, his flannel shirt tucked in neatly. Her mom immediately hugged Harper, inspecting her bruised wrist. I'm so sorry, Mom, Harper whispered. Do not apologize for being abused by a coward, her mother said fiercely. Thomas was a calm, pragmatic man in his 40s. He reviewed the documents, the promissory note, and the audio recording. We have a strong case for asset dissipation. I'll draft an injunction to freeze his business account so he can't move any more marital funds, and we will formally demand the $80,000 loan repayment. Her father spoke up. I don't care about the money if they were happy, but if he's using our retirement to fund his mistress, I will bleed him dry to get every penny back for my daughter. Before the meeting ended, Harper's phone buzzed from an unknown number. Thomas nodded, instructing her to answer and record. Harper, it was Vivian. Her voice was small and panicked. I need to meet you. The $30,000. Cole lied to both of us. I have proof you need. Harper looked at Thomas. He nodded. Send me an address. Harper said. I'll be there with my attorney. They met at a quiet, dimly lit coffee shop in the Loop. Vivian looked terrible. No makeup, hair in a messy bun, eyes bloodshot. The arrogant socialite from the night before was completely gone. Vivian slid her phone across the table. It displayed a WhatsApp thread between her and Cole, dating back 3 months. Cole had reached out first, begging her to consult on Lake Geneva. But the text quickly shifted away from business. I wish you had never left for London. Harper is a good woman, but we live like roommates. I'm working on separating my assets, but it takes time. Harper stared at the texts, her stomach churning. Vivian spoke, her voice shaking. He told me the $30,000 was a retainer, but he also promised me equity in the project once the divorce was final. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to win him back. I acted like a monster to you last night because I thought you were the only thing in my way. Vivian started crying, but when you confronted him and he just threw me under the bus, I realized he was using me too. He was never going to leave you until he secured his money. I don't want any part of this. I will give the money back. I just don't want to be sued. Harper scrolled down and saw one final text from Cole to Vivian sent a week ago. Don't worry about Harper finding out. She's soft-hearted. If I threaten divorce, she'll back down. She's soft-hearted. Her kindness hadn't been a virtue to him. It had been a vulnerability to exploit. Harper looked at Vivian. If you cooperate with my lawyer and transfer the funds to an escrow account, I won't name you in a civil suit for alienation of affection or fraud. I don't need to destroy you to prove I was wronged. Vivian looked stunned by the mercy. I am so sorry, Harper. Truly keep your apology, Harper said coldly. Just do better with your life. That evening, Cole showed up at Harper's parents' house in the suburbs. He stood on the porch in the freezing cold, looking haggarded. Harper's dad blocked the doorway. Let me talk to her, Cole begged. Harper walked to the door, Cole's eyes filled with tears. Harper, I'm sorry. I'll drop Vivian. I'll pay your parents back today. Just give me one more chance. Harper looked at him. Just 24 hours ago, he was a god in his own mind. Now he was just a desperate man who realized he had miscalculated his own invincibility. You aren't sorry you hurt me, Cole. You're just panicking because I took away your control. I still love you, he cried. Maybe. But you loved yourself more. You wanted a wife for your image, an ex for your ego, and my parents' money for your ambition. You wanted everything, but you didn't want the responsibility. Cole fell silent, shivering in the cold. Your only option now is to cooperate with my lawyer, Harper said. She closed the door, leaving him standing alone in the dark. 3 months later, Harper moved into a new, smaller apartment in a quiet neighborhood. The divorce was brutal, but airtight. With Vivian's texts and the draft postnup, Cole had no leverage. He was forced to return the $30,000 to the marital pot, buy Harper out of their condo at premium market value, and liquidate a portion of his firm to repay her parents $80,000 with interest. The Lake Geneva project fell through due to the financial audit. On her first night in the new apartment, Maya brought over a potted monstera plant. Every new place needs some life, she said. Harper's mom brought a casserole and her dad fixed a wobbly cabinet door. They ate pizza off paper plates on the floor. Laughing, Harper looked around. It wasn't a luxury condo, but it was safe. She realized that a home isn't about the square footage. It's this place where you don't have to make yourself small to be loved. A year later, the alumni group chat pinged with talk of a holiday get-together. Phil messaged Harper privately, asking if she would come. Harper smiled, typing back, "Thanks, Phil, but I'm busy that night." She locked her phone and went back to watering her plants on the balcony. She didn't need to return to the battlefield to prove she had survived. She had won the moment she walked out of that restaurant. She hadn't destroyed a marriage. She had simply turned on the lights so everyone could see it was already in ruins, and by doing so, she had saved herself.